Hello everyone, this is Dennis, VE1XT here. I've recently been playing quite a bit with the new FT8 mode by K1JT. It's available in some of the more recent release candidate versions of 1.8 of the WSJT-X software. It's a mode that is very similar to JT65, JT9, and some of the other modes currently in use on HF. However, one of the main differences I found is that the transmit and receive cycles are much quicker, or much shorter, I guess, rather than the 60-second or more that you would see with JT65 or Whisper or whatnot. With FT8, we're looking at about 15 seconds. And actually, if you want to get right down to it, I think it's about 13 or 14 seconds, and then on transmit, and then your decode will, or then it'll start listening and decoding. Now, I'm not an expert in this subject at all, but I've found it really enjoyable playing with this mode. In the past 5 or 6 days, I've been able to make about 200 contacts all over North America, South America, and a good part of Europe. As you can see, the call signs and stuff are flashing through pretty quickly, so it does make it a little more difficult to kind of snag that QSO, or when you see that call, click on the call sign and start transmitting. And because that cycle is only 15 seconds, if you're if you're not so quick on the draw, then you may miss out on the first round. So you may have to wait until the station calls CQ again before you're able to answer them. However, one of the other features with this mode is this auto-sequencing option. If you can see where I'm circling with my mouse here, this will allow you to either cycle through the CQ messages or the answering a CQ message automatically. So if you see someone call CQ on your left side here on the band activity, you double click, and then it brings everything over into the RX frequency. And then you can see when you're transmitting, and it'll immediately start transmitting your answer to a CQ. So it'll be basically the call sign, your call sign, and then your grid. And then as you switch over to receive mode, you receive the signal, and if you receive a response from the station, your software will automatically in turn turn around and transmit the following message, which would be the R plus the DB. So it's really neat in that sense, where you basically just have to snag the first message and make that first, once the other station hears you and then replies, the system itself kind of automatically takes over and does it for you. Some people may not like that. You can turn the option off. But I find that that's very handy, especially if, the conditions aren't great and you have to go back and forth multiple times with multiple messages before the other end will decode and then reply. So you don't necessarily have to be there waiting for the exact right time to click the button to initiate the next message and hope you've got the timing right and everything. Of course, as with any other of the JT modes, the timing is critical. So you'll want to have a very good time sync on your PC. For mine, I've been using an application called Network Time, which automatically synchronizes every 15 minutes, which is kind of the standard, and I can manually sync it at any time I want. This seems to be a little more reliable than the Windows NTP client, and so I've been having some good success with that. Now, you may notice that at the bottom of my screen we see some other things open here. Specifically, two things that I use when operating FT8 or any of these digital modes is I do have a serial port connected on my rig, which is a Kenwood TS570, so I can use the cat control. WSJT has cat control built in, so all you have to do is pick your settings in your rig, and away you go. And as you've seen in my other videos, the logging program that I prefer is Log4Ohm, or OM. And this is what I use to log my contacts. And now generally the WSJT application, it doesn't generally interface with the Log4Ohm application to log your contacts automatically. So what I've generally been using is this application called JTX, JTAlert X. And this has some settings in here, if we can get into them, where we can configure the application to automatically connect to Log4Ohm, pull some detail, or dump the call or the contact into your database, and then once you do that, the Log4Ohm updates the data, all that stuff on the QSO, so you can have all the standard information if you do like a Q or Z lookup or something of the sort. Or you can even use it to post to club log or HRD log or something like that, even though there are some of those features that are also built in to JTAlert X. And just to give you a quick peek at this, we have Log4Ohm configured, where I do have the Log4Ohm communicator running, and you can see here actually where the messaging on Log4Ohm, where it's connecting to Log4Ohm and uploading and adding the QSOs. So that took a little bit of configuring, but it wasn't overly difficult. And what you also do here is you specify where your database file is, and off you go. If you use a MySQL log for Log4Ohm, then you can also configure that here. This JTAlert X is actually kind of what ties it all together and what makes working FT8 or any of these digital modes quite easy and enjoyable. Not only does it handle logging to your logging program, you'll also see here that there's call signs that flash across this grid at the bottom of the screen. And depending on the color and the whether there's an asterisk or a pound sign, you can determine whether someone is calling CQ, whether someone's calling a directional CQ, like they're looking for CQDX, or they're looking for a specific state or country or something. And the different colors can also indicate whether that call is coming from, whether you've worked a call sign in that grid square before, or if that's a grid square that you need, whether it's a state that you need, a prefix that you need. So all these visual cues will give you many different ways of kind of assessing what's going on and picking the contacts that you want to make. For example, on the band activity side here, we see sometimes we see contacts in a light purple, a green, a dark purple, or a red. The really dark purple would be basically a country that you haven't worked before. The light purple, the lighter purple, would be a call sign that you haven't worked before, but you've already worked that country. And the green would be a call sign that you already have in your log. And then if you were to see something in red, that would be a line, or that would be a message that contained your call sign. So if VE1XT were in red, then, or if there was a line in red, that would indicate that my VE1XT call is in that line or in that message. So that way you can also see if someone's calling you or responding to your call or whatnot. Now, like I said, I'm no expert at this application. This is really the most I've really kind of gotten into it, but I really enjoy it. And it seems to me that since this FT8 came out, JT65 has been quite a little bit slower, I guess, or I haven't seen as many call signs and as much band activity on there as I once would have prior to FT8 when I did look at it before. I mean, that could be multiple factors, but I think FT8 does play a fair bit into it. And the other thing you may notice too is I am running an application called TeamViewer. which is basically a remote desktop type of application, because what you're actually looking at here is the screen of a laptop that I have sitting behind me, which is connected to my radio and runs all of the software, which I set it up this way because I wanted to be able to work these digital modes when I'm out of the shack. And with this setup, TeamViewer, and I'm actually able to work HF on these digital modes from wherever I am. So I've even, laid on the couch and fired up the TeamViewer app on my phone and, made some contacts through TeamViewer on my Android phone. So that's pretty neat. So wherever I go out, my rig is available to me and I can log in, make a few contacts, log out, and away we go. So anyways, I know I'm rambling on a little bit, but I do really enjoy this type of thing. So we'll see if we can make a FT8 contact here. We're just waiting for this next cycle here to go through. As you can see on the bottom, you can see how far along in the transmitter receive cycle you are. The bar indicates that, as well as the numbers on the side. And once it starts decoding, we can go ahead, and it does decode really quick, and we'll double click on V7BC. Nope. Oh, and we do have to make one adjustment here. One of the things I did find with TeamViewer is that for some reason the audio, and I'm not sure if you actually heard that or not because I do have my desktop audio muted, but essentially what was happening was the audio was playing through my speakers in my headphone. So I just have to go into the audio conferencing, mute the volume, and away we'll go here. Now, let's see. Here you can see sort of, here's the time interval, the difference in time, the time difference, the frequency, and, what the signal strength is. And obviously, the higher the signal strength, the better chance you're going to have at a contact. So here we'll just double click on VE7BC, and he's at about 3 dB. And chances are with this initial, because this transmit receive is so short, with the initial, when I clicked on it, it was probably already 2 or 3 seconds. As you can see, he didn't decode and reply, which could very well be that my timing was off enough that I started transmitting partway through the interval. Now we're going through it again here, and we'll see my transmission's finished, and we're just listening for the signal here. You can see at the top in the waterfall that there is a signal, so it's possible he or she will be replying to my and no, here we didn't get him actually. So he replied to K7OM. So when that sort of thing happens, we just go on to the next one. And that's the beauty of this particular mode, is we don't have to wait very long for another, to see another set of CQs or, whatnot coming through. And let's see here. So we will try for this one. Now this AC8NE, my receive, he is minus 10 dB, so it may or may not work out. I mean, we are on 14 megs, 20 meters, and it's kind of getting late in the evening. It's 9:30 p.m. where I am, and no, we did not get a reply there either. So maybe we can try our hand here at calling CQ. So what we'll do here is we can actually set ourselves to transmit on the even interval. It doesn't really matter, because as long as someone decodes you, they'll be able to hear you, or they'll be able to reply. But I find it sometimes more successful by selecting TX on the even first. And we'll see here, hopefully in a few minutes, whether we will get a reply to the CQ. As you can see in the waterfall, the band is not that great at the moment. I could try 40 meters, but in my current situation, I do have a bit of RF that gets into the shack on 40 meters, and well, I suppose maybe if I were to turn off my speakers for the time being, I need to get some ferrite cores or something to wrap around the speaker wire to hopefully mitigate that. But here we have a reply from, oh, we didn't decode that in time, but we did receive a reply from N6YQ. And let's see, maybe we'll get another reply this time around. And he is only about 0.1 of a second off in time, so that should be pretty good. Generally, I find anything, you can make contacts with people that are, let's try that. Sometimes if you double click on the name, on that message, it'll change your transmit message as well. But if he's 0.1 off in the time delta or delta time or time difference, whatever you want to call it, then that's more than adequate to make a good contact. And if you keep an eye on the waterfall, I actually don't see him replying to that particular message, but sometimes when the bands are getting a little flaky here, you kind of have to try a few times. I probably should have recorded this video during a time when the bands were a little more active, but we'll see. And it looks like you can usually gather within the first 3 to 5 seconds if you keep an eye on the waterfall whether or not someone is going to reply to your message while you're listening. So we'll halt that transmission there. Maybe we'll move over here to see. It looks like there's a really big signal over here, just under 1200 hertz. And let's see what we can decode here. I don't know if that's someone calling CQ or that may be that AE0DC. So he's about 15 over. Yeah, that's AE0DC, and you see when he's green on this side, it just means he's calling CQ on the frequency that you're on. Sometimes it gets a little bit confusing because I don't believe I have a contact with him in my log yet. So we'll see if he received that message. There is a big signal coming back. So let's see here in just a moment once it decodes whether he heard me and replied. Nope. So that was another CQ. So let's give this another try. And we'll see what happens. And you'll notice as well when you're transmitting, of course, the waterfall does stop because you're not receiving and there's no signals or anything to see. No incoming signal. So, and there we go. We have a reply from AE0DC. And he came back with a signal report of +4. And I send his call sign, my call sign, R meaning Roger, and then his signal report. And on the next round here, I should receive, if all goes well, I should receive a Roger, Roger, Roger. And then when I start transmitting, there we go. I receive the RRR. And now I'm sending the 7.3. And you can configure WSJT-X to automatically pop up the logging screen when a QSO when you send or receive the 73. So we can manually type the name here if we want, but all the information, and I'm actually have my radio turned up to 15 watts at the moment, just due to some lack of signals and people finding it hard to hear me. I guess not lack of signals, because that would be the other way around. But anyways, so we click OK to log. And with this JTAlert X, in a moment here, we will see And we should see success, QSO logged. So now we have, that indicates that it was able to successfully log the QSO to my logbook. And if we bring up log4om and go under recent QSO, we now have AE0DC. And if we double click it to open it up, and we already see that we have the call sign, the name's already filled in, address, QTH, all that good stuff. So we'll just cancel that. So that is the basic QSO, or the basic message. Well, that's the basics of of responding to a QSO, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Now, if we go over here, I generally like to look for a frequency that is relatively clear, and we can enable. So I clicked on the. We'll try calling CQ here. So I clicked on the CQ message and then clicked enable TX. And the other option here is I also have this call first, which basically means that I will automatically reply to the first call sign that I receive back after calling a CQ. So the first person that responds to my CQ that I decode, I guess, would be the first person that I respond back to. So we'll see here, maybe if sometimes I find it takes 2 or 3 calls before, just like anything else, where it may take 2 or 3 calls before someone comes back. We may not get a whole lot back this evening. The band's kind of dying out, and we'll see maybe if this doesn't work, we can maybe switch over to 40 meters and see if we can possibly get a QSO over there somewhat quickly. But the fun of this is, you can sit here, make a whole bunch of contacts. You don't necessarily need to be entirely focused on your computer screen or your radio the whole time. A lot of times I like to run TeamViewer in the background and pop it open every once in a while, check and see what's going on, all that stuff. But let's see. I thought maybe we were getting something back here, but that could very well just be noise. We'll try one more CQ here, and if that doesn't work, we'll flip it over to 40 meters and see if we can see what the band's like over there. And just as I suspected, it doesn't look like we're going to be getting a whole lot, so we'll disable that. And we'll go over to 7.074. And another thing that you can do here too is you can erase the receive frequency. When you switch bands, it doesn't necessarily clear the band activity, but once you go through a receive cycle or two, you'll quickly fill it up with activity that's on the band that you're currently on. And I'll turn off my speaker, and we'll enable TX, and we'll put out a call on 403. So the frequency on the very left here is would be 7.074 megs, which would be the dial frequency on your radio, and then everything else kind of works up to a little over 2200 above that, and it is an upper sideband signal. So if you're operating on 40 meters, you will be operating on upper sideband as opposed to lower sideband. But let's see here if we can pick up a QSO here after a bit. And it does look like somebody may be replying here now, because they likely started replying mid-sequence. That is why we only see part of the transmission in the waterfall. But usually when if they continue to try to reply, we now see that coming down right underneath the blue and red is a fairly strong signal here. So in a few seconds, hopefully we'll have a response to our QSO or to our CQ, and we do. We now have a reply from KD2BYA in FN13, and he's at 1 dB, minus 1 dB. And we'll see if it also looks like 40 meters is fairly up and down as well, so it's possible that we didn't get a full decode on that, what appears to be his transmission. So we'll go ahead and reply to him again with our signal report. And we will see, now we see, if you look at the waterfall and you do see those horizontal lines, each horizontal line, or the space between a horizontal line, is one transmit or one receive sequence. So I guess if you're not transmitting, every sequence would be received. So each that would be each interval, in case you were wondering. And we did get my signal report was -6, and then I sent the Roger, Roger, Roger. And we should be receiving a 73 on this one. And as you can see, all of this was done automatically, no needing to choose the different responses or the different messages to send out, because we had the auto sequence on. And as we did the last time, we'll log the QSO. And sometimes you'll notice as well that we did receive the 73. Sometimes due to the decoding of the signals and everything, they will appear sort of out of order here. And what had happened in this instance was, because my decoding was slightly after the next transmit interval kicked in, I did start transmitting a second Roger, Roger, Roger. But as soon as I received the 73, I did immediately switch over to send my 73, and the I'm guessing that he or she has received that that message. Now, if you've worked some of the other modes, the other digital modes, you don't necessarily have to send that final 73. I think a lot of QSOs, as long as you receive the Roger, 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 and then the other station sends the 73, then you're usually good. So that's a little bit about working FT8 in a nutshell. I'm sure there's lots more that we could cover, and I know that I do ramble on a little bit, but I really do enjoy making these videos. So if you have any comments, questions, constructive criticism, anything of the sort, by all means, please post it in the comment section below, and we'll hopefully see you the next time we upload a video. Thank you very much. 7-3.